Welcome back, FoodFAQers. This is Mariela.
And Eric.
And today we are continuing our Bougie series with what, my friend?
Today it is blue and bougie. So we are using blue cheese.
Your favorite.
My absolute favorite cheese. Mm-hmm. And we made blue cheese Gougeres. Gougeres. That sounds very fancy. It is essentially, if we want to Americanize it a little bit, it is a cheese puff.
Right. But not like the orange ones that come inside a big.
No. Not like that. No. This is an actual pastry.
Describe it like airy.
So the best way I can describe it is if you eat like when you eat a cream puff. Right.
Right.
So
it's a cream puff.
It's a cream puff, essentially, because that cream puff is made from a dough called a pate choux or choux pastry.
Choux.
What the fuck was that?
Oh, I don't know. It just makes me happy.
Oh, okay. I'm glad. Anyways, so the pate choux it's that kind of like light, airy dough, and it's hollow in the middle. And that's where they put the cream inside for the cream puff.
Like an eclair, if you will.
Like an eclair. Like a little eclair you can pop into your mouth. And, so that's what this is, but it's savory.
Yes.
It has blue cheese in it. Yes. And did you like it?
I loved it. I did mine. Well, let's get into it and then we'll talk about what we did.
Okay. We're going to get into this. So just so everybody to know, the only reason why we have a technical recipe here is because Mariela made sure this recipe was completely scientific.
I had to rein you in. You're like,
I was just like seasoned with love. Okay.
Yeah,
and
but you can't do that.
This whole entire fucking podcast, you've been like, seasoned with your heart. And then, but for some reason last night, you were just like, what's the measurement, asshole?
Yes. So because we're baking. We can't just be like, oh, whatever. Like, who the fuck knows? Who knows how to make a choux pastry? Not everybody knows how to make this stuff. We got to explain it to the people. It's a service.
This recipe.
It's our duty.
When we did this, we went over multiple recipes and came up with this together after going over multiple recipes. And I think this is great. I think this is a really good one.
Amazing. Go for it.
All right. So this is what y'all going to do. So first we have to make that pate choux. We have to make the choux pastry. And to make the choux pastry, what you're going to do is you're going to take 8 tablespoons of butter, cut it up into little squares. You're going to take 1 cup of water and about 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And you're going to put that in, like, I put it in like, just like a regular pan. I didn't even put it in a pot. It was just like in a pan. And you're going to turn the heat on and you're going to let all that butter melt. Once the butter's melted, you're going to take 1 cup of flour. You're going to toss that flour in there and take about 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to mix it up. You're going to keep it on the heat and you're going to mix it up and you're going to let it form into like this little, basically the smooth ball.
And
is
wait,
what you're going to form it into.
What are you going to mix it up with? Important.
Okay. So this is actually important. You do have to use a wooden spoon or a wooden spatula to mix this. Yeah. Okay. So don't use anything plastic or metal or silicone. You do have to use something wooden. There's a science behind that I'm not even going to pretend to understand. I can make it up for you, but it's possibly wrong. So you're going to go ahead, you're going to start mixing it and you're going to let it turn to a smooth ball. Okay. So after honestly, it forms really fast. It's not a long process.
It does.
So after you have this smooth ball there and you've moved it around and it's all great, you're going to take that and you're going to put it in a separate bowl. So you've taken off the heat and you put it in a separate bowl. I put it in my stand mixer bowl. If you don't have a stand mixer, that's okay. You could go ahead and just put it in a regular bowl, but you're going to need you're going to have to keep that wooden paddle with you. All right. So it's in a separate bowl. We're going to let it cool for 2 minutes. When it's done cooling, again, I use my stand mixer. I use the paddle and I turned it on like medium, like number 3 or 4 on your stand mixer. And I let that go. And the reason why we do that is because you see all that heat from that dough pastry come out. So we have to let that heat escape. And the reason for that is you're going to use 4 eggs. You're going to put 1 egg in at a time.
Right.
You need that dough to be cool because you don't want to scramble that egg. You don't want to cook it. So let the blade run for a couple moments. When you see the steam no longer being released. Do 1 egg at a time, 4 eggs. Let it blend in there. It might look like it's going to separate for a little bit, but just continue with the stand mixer. Just continue with it. After you have 4 eggs in there, you're going to end up with this it's almost like this wet, gooey dough. Basically, you're going to end up with. When you got that dough, you're going to take 3/4 of a cup of blue cheese. So you want to crumble that blue cheese, 3/4 of a cup blue cheese. I used 3/4 of a cup of an extra sharp cheddar. And my favorite brand of extra sharp cheddar is called Old Crock. As my favorite brand of extra sharp cheddar. Mariela used her, which is the one you use, Mari?
I used Parmesan.
You use Parmesan. So Mari used 3/4 cup Parmesan. I used 3/4 cup of extra sharp cheddar. Go ahead and mix that together. Now, while you're doing all this, get your oven preheated to 425. Get your baking sheet, put parchment paper on it. And then you're going to scoop up probably, I would say, a tablespoon.
It's a scant tablespoon.
Yes.
I measured.
Of the dough. So these are small. You have to remember, these are small. When I first made them in the size of a cookie, doesn't work. Okay.
You made giant Gougeres.
They weren't even. They weren't even. So I went ahead and I did that. So you put your scant tablespoon size on the parchment sheet. I fit, I think, 12 on the baking sheet. This recipe should make about 24 of them. And then what I did is, before I put them in the oven, I just brushed it with an egg wash.
Yeah.
And the egg wash is I just beat an egg in a bowl and just brushed it. That's all I did. You put it in the oven, 425 degrees for 5 minutes. Then after the 5 minutes are up, you lower the temperature in your oven to 375 and you keep it in there for another 25 minutes. When it's done, you take it out. I took like a tiny little paring knife. You can even take a toothpick, whatever you want, and just poke holes in them. And the reason why you poke the holes is because that hole that has formed on the inside, you're going to poke the hole and you're going to, it's going to allow that hole to stay.
Yeah, because they're hollow.
They're hollow. Right. A lot of pastry chefs at this point, when they're making a cream puff, will poke the hole in the bottom part, and that's where they put the cream in the inside. So poke your hole, give it a moment to cool, and gobble this up.
Stuff your face.
This is so delicious. It is
good.
Great. And what I love about this recipe, Mariela, is that you can use any type of cheese you want.
You can.
You know, I personally use blue cheese because this is our blue cheese recipe, but
it's called blue and bougie.
Blue and bougie. Yeah. We said that in the beginning.
I'm like, I know it this time. Yeah. So, I added blue cheese as well. And I added the parm because it's what I had. And I didn't want to use my unexpected cheddar in mine. So I didn't.
Right.
And then, you know what else I did to mine? After I put the egg wash on top, I cracked some fresh pepper right over it. And I added like a little pinch of the Parmesan so it can get toasty in the oven. And it made like a crunchy delight on top, which I really liked. And even my kids like this. I
put a little bit of basil in mine because I ran out of black pepper. I didn't realize it.
Yeah. You can make this herbed. You can make this with any cheese. This is kind of like, you can marry it to whatever you want, really.
Yes, it is. I found it to be really delicious. And what I love is, Mariela, is I know the process sounds a little daunting, but it's really not. No. It comes together really fast. A pate choux is a very quick dough that comes together. There's no kneading involved.
Yeah. And it's just basic ingredients, which is great.
Yes.
Flour, water, butter. These are things you have. You can make.
Well, that's what I was going to say. These are things that we all mostly have in our homes. If you followed your FoodFAQ pantry and refrigerator list, it will be in your home. I think I have, every time I go to the grocery store, I always forget I have butter. I don't know why.
Me too, but it's like a weird amnesia that I like because I always like to have butter, no matter how much.
10 sticks of butter in my refrigerator.
Yeah, same.
I have
absolutely.
But what I love about that is I can bake something whenever I want.
Yeah, like I never want for butter. It's literally always there. So for me, it's like a necessary evil. Not that it's evil, but yeah. So these are really good. And I feel like, yes, they're bougie because you're making a pate choux and you're making a Gougere and you're using blue cheese or whatever other nice cheese you like. But honestly, it's really just flour and butter and water and
Mariela.
like 15 minutes.
Mariela.
Yeah.
What about, I wonder what it would do to the dough if you mixed in a brie cheese with it.
Into the dough?
Well, because the brie is gonna become part of the dough anyways, because it's so creamy. I wonder what it's gonna do to it.
Yeah, that would be something to try. I love brie, unlike some people who really hate on it 24/7.
I don't hate on it, but it is not the superior cheese. You're essentially let me eat solidified cream.
If you were to use brie, wouldn't it be delicious if like you put a little dot of that jam on top like we were talking about?
Yes.
That would be fun.
Well, because so I think that when you have these, so we're trying to think of how to serve them. And don't get me wrong, you can serve this just as they are, perfectly as they are. I would, if you had like a little bit like raspberry jam or something like that, I would use a little bit of that. And with the brie, absolutely, it would go with it. And the reason why I say to use like a raspberry jam is because raspberry jam is kind of tart, but it's going to cut some of the pungent. See, I like that pungent taste of blue cheese.
Right.
To people, they maybe like it toned down a little bit.
Right.
And that's going to tone it down.
Yeah. I mean, and you don't have to use blue cheese. You can just use any other combination of cheeses you prefer.
You use any combination of cheese you want. Whatever your favorite cheese is, use it. You know, I think the brie might go good with it because the blue cheese is kind of soft.
Yeah. And it melts into the dough.
And it melts into it.
So
I thought these were fantastic. And I felt bougie eating them.
Me too.
And the most expensive thing in this entire thing was the blue cheese.
Which you can get at really any level, any price point you desire. You can.
Well, that's the thing. When it comes to blue cheese, blue cheese is my absolute favorite cheese. So I'll spend a couple bucks on it, but you can get lesser priced blue cheese.
Yeah.
A couple tricks is, sometimes crumbles are a little bit cheaper than the block.
Totally.
Just because the block has so many different, variables of what they are.
Right.
So you can make this. And I think the fact that this recipe makes 24 little cheese puffs, that's fantastic.
And this is great for this time of year because you can entertain with this. You can add it. It's unexpected. No one else is going to be making this. I promise you,
Yes.
People spend their time spending money on like the charcuterie components of a board, but they don't spend these little touches or it makes your dishes memorable and your get-togethers memorable.
I think that's the thing too.
Yeah. It's like a worthy investment of time.
Exactly. I love a good charcuterie and I always have stuff ready on hand for charcuterie, but it's kind of fun to steer away from that trend and serve something completely different. You could serve this on the side of a meal you're serving even, or, if you want to serve bread or whatnot with your meal, try something like this. And honestly, out of all the things we've done on Food FAQ, this is probably, because blue cheese is close to my heart, this is probably my easily like the top 3 things.
This is like a little amuse-bouche, if you will.
I don't know what the fuck that means, but I'm going to agree with you.
It's a mouth amusement, which I'm sure you're very, very familiar with.
Let me tell you something. I have received no complaints and just.
I love you.
I received no. Wait a minute. You know what?
What?
I want you to close your eyes and picture like a younger Mariela and Eric back in like 1996 with my mother's living room with 2 popsicles. Okay. So you taught me. Okay.
I did.
You did with popsicles.
Oh, that sounds just right.
You totally taught me with popsicles. Just to let you know.
You're welcome. Half of the population.
Many people from far and wide should thank you. So your legacy lives on.
Oh my goodness. Well, on that note, a little slightly less bougie than we maybe had imagined.
Definitely not bougie there, but
oh my goodness,
try this delicious meal. Not a meal, this delicious piece of heaven. It's gonna be great.
Yes. You're really not going to be sorry you tried this. And we hope you're enjoying our little bougie series. We'll be back next week with one more installment.
Oh my
Don't
God,
forget. What?
That's an exciting one. This is an exciting one. The next one.
I'm really excited about this one because I really love this one. But we would love it if you sent us a line. Go and visit us on our Instagram page. And we also have a new newsletter that will come into your inbox directly with a fun recipe for you to try. You can check that out in a link in the show notes. So we love you guys, and we will be here next week. Take care.
Bye-bye.